Hey, this is Malachi Church versus State. You know, life is short, so you got to make the best of it. And you got to take time for your family. That's why I always say in my videos, hug your kids, call your parents, go see neighbor, repent, and be baptized. Because it's all about keeping a connection with people around you, because it's important. A good friend of mine, I was told, is not going to live past tonight. Now, this individual probably, I would say, in reality, probably I don't know, how do you put it? This guy helped so many people you would not fathom. And he'd always help people more than he'd help himself. And so you go, well, okay, a lot of people do that. Well, this guy was different. This guy was the man who believed in people so much so that if it wasn't for him, who knows what would have happened in their lives and in their careers. He brought over Jimi Hendrix to play the Monterey Pop Festival. That was where Jimmy burned his guitar. And he was part of that whole thing there. He was also the same guy who was dating Janis Joplin, brought her from Cathy, Texas, I believe, and was a part, in a way, in getting her that gig on that stage as well. Thus getting them recorded, filmed, because originally they didn't want to be filmed. Janis then kind of pushed the band to say, hey, we need to get filmed, this will help us, and it did help them. The Monterey film that became a film from that pop festival went on to help her career. My buddy was the one who got her to that show along with Jimi Hendrix. This guy was also really good friends with a man named Jim Morrison. This man was also the one that was the promoter that believed in an unknown band at the time named Led Zeppelin, and fronted the money and put together all different things for them to do their first U.S. tour. This man is also the one who kind of put a lot of money and, just really believed in this guy that he met in London. And I think he met him through, he met him through that one girl was really skinny back in the 60s. She was a model. I can't remember her name right now. She was really popular back then, but she was really skinny. But this guy that he brought over to play in LA at the Troubadour, his name was Elton John. There were also other bands too that this guy helped out. One being the band Chicago. When they were about ready to fold up and say, we're done, he loaned them, he didn't loan them any money, he gave them money for them to go fix their car so they can continue a tour back in, I believe, 1969 or 68. This guy would always just give away things freely. And he'd always do it, in my opinion, sometimes I'd say, look, there'd be people that you would know they weren't deserving because they turn around and sell something. And unfortunately, I got the call today, and I'm kind of really ticked off at his kid. But I'm not going to go into it. I understand that they don't understand who their dad was, and they say he's not going to make it past tonight. So the only will that he had, and he didn't technically have a will, but I know for a fact that he told me I was supposed to take care of everything. But it's kind of, for me, I don't know. I'm in a stalemate right now because I heard that there's a lot of stuff that's people have taken, and it's like I know what he had, and it's historical. It's like crazy, but I understand the fact that they didn't know what their dad was and who he was because of the kind of person he was. He was an alcoholic. You could never call him after 3 o'clock. But if you called him before 3 o'clock, he was the nicest guy you ever meet. Always, hello, hey, how are you, blah, blah, blah. A very kind man, but, you know, it almost reminded me of Henry Hill, and he also knew Henry Hill. And I knew Henry Hill of Goodfellas and stuff like that. So, you know, Henry was always a nice guy to me. But he was an alcoholic, and then he would become something else, you know. That's what alcohol does to you. But Boyd, after 3 o'clock, you didn't want to call him because he'd be, you know, wasted. Then for a while, I guess, or at least for the past couple of years, he you know, stopped drinking and really tried to focus. He wanted to. He was the guy that started calling me Moses. He was the man that was working. Well, this is another thing about him. He lived a life where he did a lot for other people, but he always kind of would almost destroy it before it happened. You know, there are a lot of guys out there that were promoters like he was, and they were rich and made tons of money and they're living large right now in their life and all this kind of stuff. And he ended up being broke, more because he had a bad divorce, kind of like what happened to me. That's why we became kind of friends. But also, the issue is that he had a cancer in his throat, so that sucked a lot of money out of his system. But, you know, he would get this close. You know, I had guys that wanted to write books with him, willing to go there and write the book and sit down. He didn't want to do it. I had the BBC contact me last year in regards to wanting to do interviews with him over the 50-year Woodstock. Because you have to understand, this man was also one of the guys who started the whole huge outdoor festival thing. He had what was called one of the greatest rock festivals in the history of music. It's called the Seattle Pop Festival, and that festival was prior to Woodstock. And it was really the reason why Woodstock got filmed, because they were trying to film different things. At his event, there is some footage out there of the Doors, and Jim Morrison, because the Doors played the show, and Jim got wasted and fell off the stage, and it was muddy, and it was all this stuff. But that show was also very interesting because, you know, it was like Alice Cooper. He helped start the career of Alice Cooper. He helped start the career of just so many. The list is so long. If I read you the list, you would go, what? But it's all factual and all true. Let me pull it up. Okay, here's the list. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Chuck Berry, Tim Buckley, The Byrds, Chicago, Albert Collins, B.B. King, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Paul Butterfield, Blue Cheer, Canned Heat, Cat Stevens, The Carltons, Charles Lloyd, Bo Diddley, The Doors, Danny O'Keefe, Dionne Warwick, Donovan, Elton John, Eric Burden, Fleetwood Mac, the Flying Burrito Brothers, Golden Earring, The Guess Who, Humble Pie, It's a Beautiful Day, Iron Butterfly, Jeff Beck, Joe Cocker, John Fogerty, John Handy, John Mayall, Led Zeppelin, Leon Russell, Leon Mack, Lou Rawls, Lee Michaels, Moby Grape, Moody Blues, Mothers of Invention, which was Frank Zappa, Muddy Waters, Rock and Foo, Murray Roman, Neil Young, Pink Floyd, Ravi Shankar, Santana, Seals and Crofts, Spirit, Sly and the Family Stone, Steppenwolf, Steve Winwood, Taj Mahal, Three Dog Night, 10 Years After, Ike and Tina Turner, Vanilla Fudge, The Youngbloods, Jefferson Airplane, The Daily Flash, Three Dog Night. Did I say Taj Mahal? Yeah. Jefferson Airplane, Country Joe, and The Fish probably too. A Magic Firm, Peanut Butter Conspiracy, The Seeds, MC5, Loving Spoonful, Cream, Grateful Dead, Jethro Tull, The Animals, and War. That's old bands. He also played a role in Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Mudhoney, and many, many, many more. But here's one thing I'm going to tell you about the guy. That oftentimes, even when I had an interview with him with BBC, and I wish he would have done it, because that had really been his greatest interview in his last one, he would start going, oh, I can't do it. I have to get my teeth fixed. Because he's missing teeth, right? I said, dude, we'll put in something. We'll make it work. No, I have to do this. We'll do something next week. Always next week. Always pushing off everything. Because he was dealing with demons, afraid to go to the next thing. Always afraid of the next thing. He was working hard on trying to find money for my project. I really didn't expect anything to happen of it, but however, he was trying. He was trying. Anyways, the guy's a legendary man, and unfortunately, he's passed. Kind of sucks, man. But I did everything I could for the dude. And I'm telling you this. I'm telling you all this. Life is short. You have to make the best of it. And I think he always did. He always made the best of his life. But you also have to understand, too, because I get people sometimes, they get this whole pride thing, And sometimes they'd get that with him. I'd hear people and they'd say, oh, that guy didn't do that. Oh, that guy didn't do that. Because you talk to him and he knows him. Oh, yeah, if somebody will say something about somebody, he knew him. Well, he was friends with Paul Allen, the founder of Microsoft. He also died. And he was also friends with Jeff Bezos and the guy from Apple. And I actually have Steve Jobs' computer up in my upstairs. His personal computer. One of them. He had hundreds of them. But so it's not that special. But however, you have to realize, and this is one thing I always got irritated a little bit with him, and I'm getting irritated kind of with his family right now. They said that you don't understand the historical content in the context in which your father helped move things along. You know, we may not think that it was a big deal. He would often talk about bands that he'd worked with, and somebody would go, yeah, well, that was then. You know, do something, or, you know, whatever. And they would fail to realize that that's a historical event. It's just like the Bible. You know, if people didn't write down this stuff, you would have never known it. When Matthew was writing down the book of Matthew, do you think maybe there's some people going, hey, you know, Matthew, you know, you're talking about yourself there. You're a little conceited. No. There's certain things that need to be said and need to be written down and need to be preserved because they're important to the tapestry of life, you know. It's like this guy's the one that did stuff with Jimi Hendrix, and I mean it's amazing. The guy, there's been nobody like the guy except for Bill Graham, but he was it. He's dead. They say he won't make it past tonight. So, which I'm pissed because he went into the hospital, I guess, a few days ago or something, and I wasn't called or nothing. Pisses me off. Anyways, I told his son, I said, look, I'm going to try to do something in remembrance of your dad. I guess they don't want to do anything. I was hoping he'd have a funeral, but they can't afford it, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand it. I try to say, do you understand who your dad was? Yeah, you know. No. Whatever. So anyways, I'm just telling the story of a friend so people don't forget. And you may think your life is minuscule, but I'm pretty sure, I guess that's the part of life, you know. I personally believe that the eternity with God is going to be more of Him wanting to hear your story. You may think He already knows your story, but He wants you to tell His story. Just like I sit back and listen to my kids. When my son was young, I'd listen to him and his stories, and I listen to my daughter and her stories. I love it. That's the way God is too. So, anyways, hug your kids. Call your parents, go see a neighbor, repent and be baptized. As my body returns to sand, I reflect upon what I am. Through these words you'll understand the great I am. From this mountain I'll make my stand, though I can see the promised land. But for me, this is where I am. My bones are in His hand. Israel, hear the truth. He will strengthen you.
But from here is where I stand, to be with you again.